Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Topf with Investing News Network, and I'm with Doug Casey of CaseyResearch.com. Doug, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure, Andrew.
You bought gold in the 70s and sold it before gold slumped. And gold has had an incredible run since 2008, since the beginning of quantitative easing. Can investors still make money by purchasing gold bullion?
Well, my feeling is that these governments all over the world have committed themselves to printing up trillions and trillions more currency units. So even though gold is not at the bargain levels it was in 2002, I think that it's going to eventually be a bubble. People are going to panic into gold from fear, from greed, from prudence. So I think it's going much higher.
Do you have any predictions as to how high?
Well, you can pull all these numbers out of the air. You can take the number of dollars in existence and the number of dollars and the number of ounces of gold that the U.S. government is supposed to hold, and do the division. But I think it's got to be quite a high number. And I think that in the future, gold is going to be used internationally and hopefully domestically as day-to-day money again.
Germany recently announced plans to repatriate about 680 tons of gold over the next few years. It will be coming from bank vaults in the United States and France. So does the U.S. have enough bullion reserves if countries like Germany are asking for it back?
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting question because if somebody wants the gold that's being stored with you back, you should be able to get it back immediately. But I understand that it's only going to be given back to them over 7 years. I don't understand that. I can understand why the Germans want it back, though. If they originally put it with the French and the Americans, perhaps that was because after World War II, they had to worry about the East Germans and the Russians. It was prudent. Now, that's not a threat. So, I don't see why there's this hesitation. I mean, who knows what the U.S. government has been doing? Good question.
The New York Times recently asked the question, is the debt ceiling scarier than the fiscal cliff? How would you respond to that question?
I think that those are actually minor things. The situation at this point is totally out of control. The spending that has been mandated on Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, the military. Americans love their military. They're not going to cut that. And interest rates are at all-time lows. The only direction they're going to go up is up, especially since the government is going to be borrowing another $1 trillion or so per year. So I wouldn't think about these things. I would think about how you could rig for really heavy running, because we're in for a financial upheaval for the record books. This is going to be the biggest thing since the Industrial Revolution, as far as I'm concerned.
You mentioned huge amounts of debt being incurred by the United States. I was listening to Michael Berry in his talk, who made the comment that the Democrats want to keep increasing the debt so that they can step in and completely reform the U.S. economy. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't. That they're going to do it, yes, they're going to do it. But both the Republicans and the Democrats are economic idiots. Although the Democrats, it's got to be said, are even more irresponsible than the Republicans. Look, the way you become wealthy is by producing more than you consume and saving the difference. That's why having net savings in a country is so important for a country or for an individual. But when you have net debt, it means that you either have been borrowing the capital that other people have saved, or you've been mortgaging your own future. So this is why I say, well, among many other reasons actually, that what I call the Greater Depression is inevitable. And at the moment where we speak, now in early 2013, we're just in the eye of the storm. And when we go through the trailing edge of the storm, it's going to be horrific.
Doug, as you know, there's some huge challenges facing mining companies, and some of them are here at the show. Cost inflation and resource nationalism are two big ones. What would you identify as the biggest obstacle facing producers right now?
Well, industry of all types all around the world is in trouble. I mean, every day a new NGO is formed that wants us to save the whales, save those snails, save those bees, save those trees, like George Carlin said. And the mining business is taking the brunt of this. It's like these people don't understand that everything in the world is made out of metals. And if you don't mine them, you don't get metals, and you don't have civilization. All you can use is stones and wood. So this is very serious, not just from the point of view of the share prices of mining companies, but from the point of view of which way civilization itself is going to go. I mean, if the Luddites take over the world this time, the way they tried to at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, consequences are going to be serious.
China is a major factor on the demand side of the equation for metals. What's your take on China right now? Is growth going to continue to flatline, or are we going to see some more growth there this year?
I'm a huge supporter of China. It's fantastic what they've done since they free marketized starting in 1980. And I have no question that that trend is going to continue and perhaps accelerate. That's on the one hand. But on the other hand, there's been huge misallocation of capital there. The government has been having them do things for the purposes of not economic productivity, but employment. I think as banks, most places in the world, the Chinese banks are bankrupt, and that's very serious. And the Chinese notoriously save. And if something happens to the bank deposits that they put in their bank, you could have a revolution there. So, no, I am bearish on China at this time. Bearish on stocks, but especially bearish on their real estate. I wouldn't be involved in China at this moment, but I'm very bullish for the long run.
Doug, I've heard quite a few speakers at the show saying uranium is in for a comeback this year, especially with more reactors coming online in Japan. So what's your view on uranium?
I'm very bullish on uranium. It's by far the safest, the cheapest, and the cleanest form of mass power generation. It's gotten a very bad rap, and this problem with Fukushima shouldn't have been a problem. But that's what happens when a technology is suppressed and you're using 40-year-old plants. It's like driving a 40-year-old car. You expect it to break at some point. But in addition to uranium, I'm a big supporter of thorium, and that'll be coming up as well.
How about rare earths? Prices have really come down, and as we've been hearing in the news, Molycorp is now being viewed as possibly ripe for a takeover. So are you bullish or bearish on rare earths?
You know what? It's from high school chemistry class. Everybody looked at those two lines with all kinds of metals that they couldn't pronounce the names of. And they were very obscure until recently with the computer revolution. I love high technology, but I hate to jump aboard something that's become recently popular. But I am interested in them because, as you know, most of the rare earths in the world are produced in China, so they're a very political commodity. And a speculator takes advantage of politically caused distortions. So I can be tempted by the right rare earth deal at this point, since they've come down a lot.
Just to drill down a bit into specific investments, you like to use the 8 Ps rule of investing. For those of us who are unfamiliar, can you give us kind of a rundown? What are the 8 Ps?
Well, there are thousands of little mining companies, and most of them are walking wounded at this point. So when we decide which out of these thousands of companies, about 70% of them are here in Canada, the rest in the US, Australia, UK, the first thing we look at is Ps. That's the first P, people. More important than all the rest of them together. That's why we have our Explorers League and our Next 10 for people that are under 40 that are finding mines. Next thing is the property. It's got to be an economic property or have extremely strong prospects of being economic. third important P is financing, spelled with a PH. Most of these companies right now don't have any money, but they still have a burn rate. So they're going to need more than a good story to keep going. Another one is politics, and politics is increasingly, unfortunately, important in the world. 100 years ago, if you wanted to put a mine in, you did it. Today, it can take you 10 years to get it permitted, if you ever get it permitted, and you're spending a lot of money in the meantime. There's the amount of paper the companies have out, the amount of options, the warrants, push. Like, what is the catalyst that is going to get this stock moving now as opposed to 10 years from now? And promotion. Promotion is a good thing or a bad thing, depending on when you bought the stock. And that's also a function of the people thing. Are they promoters or do they hide their light under a bushel? So there's a lot of things to look at, but we try to be systematic about looking at these stocks, not just throw a dart and hope for the best.
Right. Do your research. Yeah. Just on a lighter note, Doug, you recently published a new book. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm very happy with this book. It's called Totally Incorrect. It's a play on the concept of politically incorrect. It's funny, when that term was coined in the 80s, I thought it was a joke. But it turned out that these people are completely serious. And the point that I'd make is that it's like Will Rogers said, it's not what people know that's the problem, it's what they think they know that just ain't so. And I've found in the approximately 40 subjects I cover there that the actual truth is not just different from what most people think, but very often the exact opposite of what most people think. So people either really love that book or they really hate it. Your readers would tend to love it.
Well, Doug, it's been great speaking with you and getting your insights, very valuable information for our audience. So thank you.
It's a pleasure.
And I've been Andrew Topf for Investing Insights. Thanks for joining me.